From Washington, D.C. to the heart of America, welcome to Mark Alford's America. I'm Freshman Congressman Mark Alford from Missouri, and I believe in America. I believe in you, and most importantly, I believe our greatest days are still ahead. You know, each week we take you behind the scenes to share the stories, news, and legislation that impacts our lives, and we introduce you to the individuals I get the honor of working with to help shape our great nation. One of those is Vice Chair Blake Moore, who proudly serves Utah's 1st District. Before Congress, Blake graduated from the University of Utah, served as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints in Seoul, South Korea, and earned a scholarship to play quarterback at Utah State University. He later got a master's in public policy and administration from Northwestern University. He worked for small businesses and as a foreign service officer at the State Department. He experienced a lot that shaped his work right here on the Hill and in domestic and foreign policy. As the first ever Utah Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee, Blake serves on the Healthcare, Social Security, and Work and Welfare subcommittees and is a member of the House Budget Committee. We are in his office today. Congressman, good to be here.
Great to be here, too. Thanks for having me on.
There's so much we could talk about, but I want to get out of the way, the relationship between Utah and Missouri. Every time I talk to you, you being a Mormon, you talk about our Governor Boggs, who did some dastardly things to the Mormons many years ago.
And I always do it in jest because it's actually more of a joke now, especially when Chairman Jason Smith, also a Missourian, comes to Utah. We like to give him a hard time. Set aside all that behind. We buried all that, and we're really the joke between it is, there was an extermination order out for Mormons at that time. It was a misunderstood group of people, but they had the right intent and eventually forced us to move across the plains. And so, yeah, we like to joke with all of our Missouri colleagues about that. I actually spend more time joking with the Colorado delegation about how we have better snow and better skiing than that. That's where I spend most of my time. Mostly with you all, I just like to make a comment in jest. But the fact that Missouri came in later and issued a sincere apology, they were like 100 years later.
Right, but no reparations.
We're an industrious group of people. In fact, our flag says industry. The beehive is our sort of emblem, and that's because we can make it on our own. We just don't need a shoot to kill order on us.
Do you feel comfortable talking about your faith in this? Because I don't know a lot about the Mormon faith.
Yeah, no, I'm very comfortable talking about faith, politics, all the things you shouldn't talk about at the kitchen table or at the Thanksgiving.
Because
I'm open to
people listening right now in this viewing area of Kansas City or listening area, you have the Reformed Latter-day Saints, also known now as the Community of Christ, and then the Latter-day Saints, which there was a split. Do you remember what year that was?
So there's Reformed Latter-day Saints, there's Fundamental Latter-day Saints, and then there's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I don't remember. I don't know specifically on the years, but I do know. My grandma took me back. She served in Independence, Missouri.
Yeah.
They have like a visitor center there, and it was near one of the other offshoots of the faith. They had a temple that was there as well in that general area. And so I have a unique connection. As a kid, I was able to travel to. I saw Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah. You need to come back for a Chiefs.
I need to actually get to a Chiefs.
Well, Andy Reid is Mormon.
Well, that's the funny thing. We really have reconciled. And Randy Reid, a member of my faith, is I think the most popular person, except for some of the players, in Missouri. And he loves the community, and he's a member of our faith. Coached at BYU for a while. Yeah. So, there were several right in the days of when it was established in the mid 1800s with Joseph Smith. And then there was just a couple of sects and people that left from there that started their own version of it. It's not dissimilar from where you have church and Protestant and that kind of stuff. So there's a few of them. We went across the plains, but the core Church of Jesus Christ has stayed largely intact without a ton of that type of stuff. But those other faiths aren't, enormous in population or whatever. But we have a good relationship with them. One of them owned. In Kirtland, Ohio, they owned one of the original temples that we built. We build really beautiful temples.
Oh, yeah.
People can go and visit.
There's one just in the Northland here in Kansas City.
Yes.
It's gorgeous. I pass by it on the way to the airport every time.
Yeah, there's one here in D.C. at the top of the Beltway, too, that people love. They owned one, and we negotiated a sale, and we were able to reacquire it. It's a part of our tradition and our history. And so there are good relationships across the board on all these, and some confusion, but
family is very important in your faith.
Yes.
Something about that.
Yeah, family's key, as it is to I hope still we could say that for our nation. There was always a really special emphasis placed on it because of one factor. The most unique aspect that we claim within our faith is that when Joseph Smith lived in the early 1800s, he had a vision that he was trying to figure out which church to join, and he had a vision that he should wait, and he will be directed towards establishing the primitive church. So Christ's 12 apostles and what he had established, he would reestablish that on the earth. So when I say founded, that's what I actually mean, it was restored. So we use the term restored. Mm-hmm. People don't necessarily understand that. And when we restored that, part of the doctrine talks a lot about and builds these temples. And in the temple, you marry for time and all eternity. That's the term we use. And so it's become a major part of getting married for time and all eternity. That's why families are eternal. They're essential. Even in the afterlife, you continue on in your family organization. I think that's probably why it might be unique to say, family's really important, because family's important for everybody.
Right.
And we don't own the claim.
But if you're going to be together for eternity, it makes the little things that I fight about with my wife over very inconsequential, like how to fold towels.
And the toothpaste.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what gets us at our place. So, yeah, they very much become inconsequential. And I hope that everybody recognizes that, no matter what faith you're a part of, I believe we're going to have an eternal existence, and we're going to continue on with these relationships. And that's not unique to just the Mormon church.
So every young man goes out and is a missionary?
So,
yeah, point.
No, nothing's required.
Mm-hmm.
There's a strong expectation that young men and increasingly young women in the age range of 18, 19 years old go out and serve from 18 months to 2 years to go across the world, like you mentioned.
And you went to Seoul.
Yeah. So it's, again, not required.
Do you get to pick where you're going, or do they assign that to you?
Nope. You get to basically say if you have any health considerations, if you have any real desire to not go international, you can put that on your application to serve. But you get a letter, and it's customary, part of our culture, to gather as a family and friends, and you read it off to people right in front of all of them. You where you're going to spend the next
few years to a draft or something.
It's just like the NBA draft, a whole lot, except you pay for it yourself. And I opened it up in Seoul, Korea, and it was.
Were they receptive of what you had?
Yeah, there's a Seoul, Korea of all Asian countries is probably some of the most Christian of all, and so they're
large Methodist,
a huge Methodist Baptist population. Yeah. Presbyterian is actually, I think, one of the biggest too, which I know them in their Korean version, Changnokyo. So the Changnokyo is big, but I think that's Presbyterian. Anyway, there was already established structure over there. We had temple over there and ward houses all throughout Korea. So it's tough. The hardest thing, if you really want to become a good salesman, go sell religion door to door. And that's oftentimes what you do as a missionary. You go and meet people and talk to folks and try to just share a message with them. If they're receptive to it, great. If they're not, you're not, so it's something you're out there to do. We got to teach English there too. It's part of your relationship with the foreign ministry. Like, we're there also for a service element. So we provide various public and philanthropic service while we're there. And we also try to help teach English. It's a huge need for that community. And so I got to be a quasi-English teacher. Don't know the first thing about teaching English, but I got to at least help people when we were there.
We have not even touched politics. I know, no, Social Security, but I'm just curious. I've always been curious about your faith and really how it tied into the Kansas City area.
Yep.
I think I told you our kids, when they graduated from high school, they had the graduation ceremony at the auditorium there. On the RLDS campus, and it always fascinated me. And we've already gone through 10 minutes of our show here. But hey, when we come back, I want to talk about what's going on here on Capitol Hill. I want to talk about Ways and Means. I want to talk about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I want to talk about Social Security. And where do we go as a nation to help reduce our deficit and stay alive as a nation, because I think it's one of the most consequential things that we are facing right now. and probably the biggest existential threat to our nation. Hey, stay with us on Mark Alford's America. We're talking with the vice chair of our conference, Congressman Blake Moore from Utah. You're listening to Mark Alford's America. Stay where you are. Welcome back to Mark Alford's America, where each week we share the stories of individuals making an impact in our great nation. Today, we're talking with Vice Chair of our Republican Conference, Blake Moore from Utah. We talked about your faith and how it relates to the Kansas City area. Let's get into politics. I'm going to start with a tough subject, Social Security. You're on the Ways and Means Committee, chaired by our Congressman from Missouri, Jason Smith. And Social Security is something that even when you start talking about it, people get really riled up. What do you think is the solution? Because if we don't do something, Social Security is going to be insolvent within 10 years.
Well, part of it is what you're doing right now, actually talking about it in a thoughtful way. And I really appreciate your willingness to do that. I have constituents in Utah that sent me a link of something that you had shared, or an article or something you had written that was just, we have to be willing to talk about it. This is not a problem to talk about. So thank you for doing that work. That shows that you're an adult and willing to actually.
And just to clarify, this was in the interview I did last week on Maria Bartiromo's Fox Business in the morning, and we were talking about making cuts to the budget. And only 24% of it is discretionary spending that we can actually affect. And a large part of that is defense, which we need to actually increase.
Yeah.
So 76% of the budget is mandatory spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And what I said was, we need to start looking on the front end and long term. No one who is paid into the system are currently working. But we've got to start thinking about, how do we make changes?
So in the Constitution, there's no difference between discretionary or mandatory spending.
Right.
And the American people shouldn't even care about the other. We have spending and we have revenue, and they don't match right now, and they haven't for quite some time. So I think we should be able to, and I'm firm on this because I have a bill that would force Congress to vote on the entirety of the budget. If the money's going out, we need a chance to vote on it on an annual basis. And we don't. The important part for what you just mentioned, and I think Americans would be appalled if they truly understood this. In Congress, when we have the purse strings through Article 1, we don't vote on 100% of what the spending is. We only vote on 25%, a quarter of it. And most of that, like you said, is defense. So with Social Security in particular, this is a math problem. Every Republican and every Democrat supports Social Security. This is not we have to obliterate this thing. This is something that we have to be adults about, saying, okay, this program was formed in 1935 for a specific need. Okay, as we've evolved as a nation, things change, needs change, and we're to a point now where if we do nothing, it'll be immediately cut by 24%. So literally, if you have $1,000
within 10 years,
it'll be within 8 years, I think now. If you have $1,000 of a benefit from Social Security on a monthly basis, it will immediately go to $860 or $760. I mean, that'll be catastrophic for people. So if we are not adults back here in Washington and actually work to avoid that catastrophe, we got to do it. So what do? You have a math problem in front of you, right? We have a depleting trust fund. We have annual FICA taxes the payroll taxes that go on. We have to look at, okay, what's life expectancy now versus what it was 20, 30 years ago? It's increasing, so we have to reckon with that, right? Just because we are going to say we live longer, so we should work a little longer, is not a problem. That shouldn't be a partisan issue. We can look at means testing, and Republicans might not love the concept of means testing, but sometimes, we can consider it. Deferrals. How could if somebody doesn't need it and they want to just defer to a later time in their retirement where they would need it, well, maybe there's a little bit of a cost savings there, and they're still taken care of. They're not out on the street.
Just because they're magnanimous and they want to help the nation, they're not allowed to do that.
Even if they want to.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's the key thing. This is the most important thing that I want people to know, is we have a strongest economy in the country, but we're not leveraging it to grow our trust funds. We are putting the money that we make into very low interest bearing trust funds that don't grow with the economy. If we were to embrace more natural growth, S&P, that type of thing, there's an opportunity there. So I'm not saying we do one thing or the other. We have to look at caps. We capped this at $160,000. Well, we need to make sure that that's keeping up with inflation as well, as those are opportunities too. People would claim that's a tax increase. Well,
the same percentage that's being
it's the
taken
same
out.
percentage that's being taken. So we have to look at all of the variables and make sure we can adjust it. But you know why we can't do it? Can't do it because we don't vote on it. If we voted on it every year, members of Congress are pretty responsible with the appropriations process, which you get to go be a heavy part of now. You've just been put on this appropriations, so huge congratulations. Well deserved. The work that you've seen the appropriations process have done over the last 50 years is keep their growth rate between 1% and 4%.
Right.
The other side of the budget, the mandatory direct spending, grows at a rate of 12, 15, 18%. That's because we don't actually have a trigger to vote on it each year. We have to just let it.
How do we get that back to start voting on?
Comprehensive Congressional Budget Act. Americans for Prosperity has been working on this. I lead the bill. It will go through Budget Committee. It's a bipartisan bill. It would just force us to vote on everything. It's a long shot in the direct near term, but it's something that we've got to be willing to do. Even if we solve some of these problems as we go into the majority. White House, House, and Senate under Republican control, we're going to use DOGE. We're going to find ways to reduce our deficits. Even if it's just a little bit, it'll be a win for all of us. But if we want to enact real change, we've got to get it so Congress actually votes on every dollar that goes out. Because if we do, I'll still vote for Social Security, but I want a chance to reform these programs so they actually have a future. I'll vote for Medicare, but I want to reform it so they have a future. Medicaid, welfare programs, defense, we need to vote on them in order to make sure that we have that limiting factor that we can deal with. So Social Security, it's the same answer for Medicare. It's the same answer for Medicaid. We've got to be willing to get there. Medicaid's something. I have a health network in Utah, part of the university network. They did a pilot that strongly pushed some of the Medicaid recipients into more preventative care. It kept them out of the emergency room. It kept catastrophic coverage down, and they saved by pushing folks into more preventative options, getting out ahead of some of these issues. It saved us an enormous amount of money, and we need to do that at scale.
How do we do that with that tough one? Way that it's set up. I mean, everything is geared toward paying on the back end through paying to try to cure diseases rather than prevent them. Do you think RFK Jr. is going to help in this?
I think there's two prongs that can be in the near term how we could help make some of these things move in this direction. Having someone like RFK that I think people will recognize is actually speaking a lot of truth to power on this, and Democrats and Republicans can be like, oh wait, we kind of agree with this. I think Democrats will recognize like, oh, maybe this isn't such a partisan play that he's doing here. But we as the White House, House, and Senate having that as Republican control for the next couple of years, you will see us address some of these issues. It won't be it won't be like sweeping change to fix the program immediately, but we'll be moving in that right direction, requiring with work requirements and things that we're putting onto the Medicaid program. Like, we just can't be scared to talk about it. We got to own it and talk about how much we support it, but that it does need reform.
Well, part of the problem is because we have such a slim majority in the House, the Democrats, progressives, and the woke mob will try to pin it on any Republican who even talks about these issues and try to make corrections, and then you're not necessarily our seats, but other seats are at risk of losing those seats.
Yeah, it's the great dilemma.
Yeah.
Democrats will already have ads written. If you say the word Medicare or Medicaid, they have ads written that you're trying to cut them and not strengthen them. And that's what we're trying to strengthen them. That's the political reality that we deal with. If we lose 3 seats, then Democrats will be in control, and it will be, split government back and forth, and we'll still get some things done, but can't let that happen. It's really dishonest to take an angle like that and say that Republicans are trying to cut it. You can saw Biden do it in his State of the Union, and it infuriates us. It's like, that's not the case. You're a bad representation of what that is. So we need to strengthen the programs. And hopefully we can communicate to the American people that that's what we're doing instead of just trying to cut.
We need to come back and do a second part with you because I haven't even heard the story about being a Foreign Service officer. I would love to hear that and some other things. We'll do that. What do you love most about America, Blake?
I love that we have set up an ideal from, I would say, you pinpoint it to 1776. Declaration of Independence set an ideal for our nation, and look at the progress that we've made. Were we the perfect union that day? No. Were we the perfect union after the Revolutionary War, after the 1812? Were we the perfect union after we abolish slavery? Did it take a while for Reconstruction? Yes. We are not. We're never a perfect union, but the Declaration of Independence sets us on a path, and I still believe at the core of every American is still trying to achieve that, and that's to me what patriotism is.
Blake, thanks for letting us come into your office, and thank you for joining us on Mark Alfred's America. We'll be back next week. Until then, folks, remember, I believe in you. I believe that our best days are still ahead of us. And Blake Moore, I believe in America.
Me too.
Amen, bro.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on.